Hey folks, Liam here. Um, Been really thinking about whether or not I should make this video, but I'm really concerned about where our country's headed. You can't turn on the news and not see that our economy is in shambles. We're in really bad shape from the political standpoint. There's all types of separation between groups of people, rather by gender, sex, sexual orientation, or sexual or gender identity, or race, or whatever. And the more I've looked into this, and the more I've thought about this, the more convinced I am that it's all by design. I'm not one of the, I don't like to spend all day listening to conspiracy theories or Alex Jones or spending all day on Telegram or whatever. But when you look at what's going on in the world, in particular our country, I'm not sure how you can come to any other conclusion. When it comes to the economy, the politicians are basically trying to destroy our energy infrastructure. They're trying to convince you that everybody needs to go to an electric vehicle because it's good for the climate, when nothing could be further from the truth. I don't want you to take my word for any of this. What I do want you to do is, there's some phrases that I want you to do some research on. If you value anything that I say, if you have any ascribe any value to anything that I say, if you spend any of the time watching any of these videos, I don't want you to take my word for anything. But I do want you to do some research on terms like demand destruction. The demand destruction is an economic theory that you destroy the demand for something, and that'll either force that something out of existence or force the price of that something down. And I'm oversimplifying it. I'm sure there's much more learned people that can make it much more complicated and describe it in much more flowery terms. But anyway, look up demand destruction. Another thing I want you to research is the central bank digital currency, or this CBDC. Now, this is kind of a generalized term that's used to describe currency, digital currency issued by central banks, whether it be our Federal Reserve or another country's, or a European, or a global central bank. Look up CBDC, and I'll say a couple things about that. It's not cryptocurrency. The CBDC is a government-controlled or a bank-controlled and issued currency, and that's not a good thing. Just like the digital dollar is not a good thing. Everybody thinks, oh, it'll be so convenient. It's so wonderful. We won't have to carry paper money or coins in our pocket anymore. And let me tell you something. These people are not doing this for our convenience. Everything they do is out of a desire for power or control, which is power. Think about what happened here in the last month with Visa. Visa announced that they would start using a product code, for lack of a better term, a merchant code or whatever, for lack of a better term, for firearms and ammunition purchases. Up until now, those purchases have been listed as like general retail, but the Amalgamated Bank, that's another term I want you to look up, the Amalgamated Bank, and their association with the labor unions. The Amalgamated Bank has pushed for and gotten Visa and other credit card merchants to agree to the submission to the ISO for a product code, for lack of a better term, for ammunition and weapon sales. Why do you think they're doing this? First they track it, then they ban it. That goes hand in hand with the CBDC or the digital dollar. If you've ever had a credit card that, like if you've ever had an insurance plan that had a health savings account where you could go to the pharmacy and use a credit card to buy certain items and have it come out of your health savings account, then you're familiar with the idea that, you know, you couldn't go into the store and buy, say, I don't know, a sleeping bag and have your health savings account cover that. Well, how do you think they know that that sleeping bag is not some approved healthcare item? That's because it has a product code associated with it. It's camping equipment or whatever. Well, that's what they're doing with firearms and ammunition and many other categories of products. So it doesn't take anybody skilled in rocket surgery to figure out that if they're identifying the products that we buy and they're wanting to implement a digital currency, then it wouldn't really be hard for them to say, okay, this digital currency is only good to purchase certain categories of items. Or to look at it a different way, to say this currency can purchase everything but certain categories of items. So that's a way around the Second Amendment. It's like they don't have to outlaw firearms or ammunition. They can just say that this digital currency, you can't spend it on that. You can't use your credit card to purchase those items. Now, initially when this came out with this new coding for firearms and ammo purchases, Visa pushed back on it. They actually sent a letter in to say, hey, you know, we don't really want to get involved in, you know, regulating or controlling what our customers purchase with our credit cards. But then just a few days later, all of a sudden they were all hunky-dory with it and everything was just fine, and yeah, we think that's a great idea, we'll go along with that. Folks, this is concerning. Another thing I want you to start thinking about or look up the term useful idiots. That was a term, you know, it's been ascribed to Lenin or Stalin or whatever. It's been around for a while, since about 1917, I think. Don't be one of those, because that's what they're counting on. They want us all to be useful idiots, particularly those in our government that can be used for their purposes to control the rest of us. The FBI, maybe, the CIA. There's all kinds of folks coming out now, particularly FBI agents, you know, frontline FBI agents coming out and saying that they're being used for political purposes, and that the FBI is no longer a law enforcement agency, but rather it is an intelligence agency that spies on people routinely. You and I may be being spied upon right now, and we have no idea, because nobody's told us, and nobody has to tell us, because it's not a part of a criminal investigation. It's just intelligence gathering. I know I'm rambling, but there's a lot of things really bothering me about what's going on in the world today, particularly our country. I just heard today that in California, if you have a child who's like pre-K through like 5th grade, parents have no choice in whether or not that child is indoctrinated, or whatever term you want to call it. They discuss their sexual identity, sex, and those children can tell their teacher that they want to be called a particular pronoun, or they want to be known by a particular name, and they want to be treated as a particular gender, and that's just fine. And the teachers will do that, and all the school administrators will do that without notifying the parents. And oh yeah, by the way, once they get into middle school, then they're in what I call the transgender pipeline. I'm sure other people have called it that. I didn't coin the phrase. Where they can go and see psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, whatever, all these soft sciences people, to get gender affirming counseling. The next step to that is hormone treatments and potentially even surgeries, all without the parents even being notified that this is going on in their school-age children. If this doesn't bother you, then I'm not sure why you're watching these videos. I'm not sure why you care about anything I have to say, because any rational person, any logically thinking person should be disturbed by this. If you have a child in public school, in one of these public schools that are doing these things, that are worried about, diversity, inclusion, and all of this equity, the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. If your school district has a DEI officer, take your child out of that school, please, for the future of our country. These school districts controlled by these teachers unions, and if you're a teacher and you're a member of a teachers union, if you don't believe in these things, then why are you sending your money to an organization that promotes these things? How can you look at yourself in the mirror and continue to pay your union dues to an organization that promotes these sort of principles or ideas? I'll tell you, I don't have children, so it's easy for me to say. But if I had school-age children, there's no way those kids would be in one of these public schools that teach this stuff, that has this, CRT or DEI or any of the other acronyms used by these woke organizations. There's no way my kids would be being indoctrinated by those people. None. I might have to work 3 jobs, but I would put them in a private school, or I would homeschool them. Whatever you need to do to if your kid's in one of these school districts, get them out. You owe it to them, not to yourself, not to me, not to anybody, any of your contemporaries. You owe it to them to get them out of this environment. There's a whole other areas that I'd like to talk about, but this video is running kind of long, so I'll wrap it up. But wake up, people. See what's going on here. There's a reason our economy's tanking. It's not by accident. It's by design. There's a reason our social infrastructure has cracked into 100 pieces. It's not by accident. It's by design. It's much easier to control a fragment of people than it is to control a whole population of people who are together with similar morals and values and principles. Let's break, the Lenin, the Marxist, Lenin, Stalin, all these people. The idea is let's break this population into smaller chunks so that we can control each of these chunks. That's what's happening here, folks. I grew up in Mississippi in the '60s, and I've never seen our country more fragmented based on race or gender or any categorization that you can come up with. But if you disagree with any of them, you get labeled, you get canceled. They tell you you're a racist, or you're a misogynist, or you have toxic masculinity. Know who you are, folks. You can call me whatever you want. I know who I am. I know I'm none of those things. And if you know yourself and you know who you are, those words can't hurt you. They can try to use them against you, but don't let them. Let them roll off your back. You can call me whatever you want. Anybody can call me whatever I want, call it whatever they want. But I know who I am. And those who know me know who I am. And make sure that you know who you are and that those around you know who you are. Because those are the only people that matter. The old saying is like, those who know matter, or those who matter know, and those who don't know don't matter. Don't be afraid to stand up and speak the truth, because we're in an ocean of lies on a daily basis. I wish I could say I've never told a lie, but no human being can say that. Everybody's lied about something. But when it comes to what matters, you'll only hear the truth coming out of my mouth. And I hope that that's all that comes out of yours, because that's the only way we're going to make it through this, folks. Lastly, I hope this is going to sound like some kind of crazy person. I hope you're preparing. I don't get paid by any of these. I don't get paid by anybody to make these videos. I'm not an influencer. I'm not a paid endorser. But look into stockpiling some supplies. If you think that means firearms and ammo, then that's what you need to stockpile. If you think that means food and water, then I think that's what you need to stockpile. By the way, don't stockpile food and water unless you're also stockpiling some guns and ammo, because you're going to need those to protect that food and water supply. Don't tell people what you have. Don't brag about what you have. If you have guns and ammo, don't talk to anybody about it. If you have a food store, don't talk about that. If you got a stockpile of food and water, don't talk about that. Because there are going to be plenty of people who are not preparing for the worst, that's going to start trying to take from those who have prepared. And sadly, I think we're at the point to where if you haven't already started preparing, you're probably a little bit behind. But it's never too late. So, start looking into these emergency food supplies, and maybe pick up a firearm or two or ammo or two while you can, because again, firearms and ammo purchases are about to start being coded. It's just a matter of time until all of a sudden things coded, firearms and ammo, won't be available for purchase with your credit card. or with your digital dollar. I really hope you're thinking about what I'm saying. You can call me a crackpot. I have no motive to help to get you to prepare other than I want those of you who have a functioning brain to be able to make it past whatever this period of time is that we're going through. Because people like you are the only hope that we have to. Literally, this is not a phrase that I use very often, but it's like literally save our country, save our constitutional republic. And I hope in the upcoming election you'll think about who you're voting for, and you won't do it based on the shiny objects that you're trying to put in front of you every day. They're trying to convince you that one side has taken away your right to have an abortion. And that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. All that court did was reverse a faulty decision. Not the first one we've had. Do a little reading. You'll find out that the Supreme Court has reversed a number of faulty decisions throughout the history of our country. And that was one that should have been decided a long time ago, should have been reversed a long time ago. And that's not, you don't have to take a position on whether or not you think abortion is right or wrong. Just look at the Constitution and look at the law, and you don't have to be a lawyer to figure this out. There's never been a constitutional right to kill somebody. Never. So how can you take away a right that was never there in the first place? And all this decision did was to put the decision for those types of things back in the hands of the state. So if you want your state to allow something like abortion within X number of weeks, or within this circumstance or that circumstance, then you now have the power. The Supreme Court gave you the power back to decide what type of society you want to live in. And if the society that you want to live in protects life, fine, vote in state laws that protect life. If the society that you want to live in has the ability to, have abortions, then fine, vote that in. You now have more freedom than you've had in the last 50 years to decide the type of society you want to live in. This is not a left or right or Democrat or Republican issue. This is a constitutional issue. And even people like Ruth Bader Ginsburg have said on a number of occasions that decision, Roe versus Wade, was decided based on a poor legal foundation. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. But don't make that decision impact or cause you to vote against your own best interest. And I said in the last video, and I'll say it again, the one that got censored, I'll say it again. For the first time ever, I'm saying I haven't voted a straight Republican ticket. I can't remember the last time I voted a straight Republican ticket. Prior to the last presidential election, I voted for Libertarian candidates. Twice, in 2 separate elections. I've voted for Libertarians and Independents more than I have candidates for either political party and when it comes to the president. And in some gubernatorial races. I've voted Independent and Libertarian easily more than I have for either of the major political parties. But this time, it's so important. that I'm asking you to vote a straight Republican ticket in the next election. And here's why. It's very simple. I don't like all the Republicans running. I don't like all the Republicans we have now. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of them I dislike. There are about 5 or 10 that I can think of that I have any level of respect for. The rest of them, they're POSs just like the Democrats. But having said that, when it comes to our country, the worst Republican is better than the best Democrat. That hasn't always been the case. That's where we are now. And they made it that way. I didn't make it this. You and I didn't decide it to be this way. They wanted it this way. They've gotten it. So that's where we are. So when you go in the voting booth in November, vote a straight Republican ticket. That's the lesser of the two evils, and it's the only path to saving our country. It's never been this dire in my lifetime. I've been alive almost 60 years. I've voted in a bunch of presidential elections, been involved in a lot more. I was involved in politics before I ever was old enough to vote. My first political campaign, I campaigned for. I couldn't even cast a ballot, but I campaigned for an independent candidate for president. Been following politics a long time. That doesn't make me an expert. This makes me a guy that's been following politics for a long time. We're at a crossroads, folks. We're at a fork in the road. All the other euphemisms you can use, or all the other metaphors you can use. If we take this left path, our constitutional republic is not going to survive. If we take the right path, it may survive. There's only one path with any possibility of our country surviving, and that's the right path, or in this particular election, the Republican path. And I'm not a Republican. I'm a constitutional conservative. Those of you who know me know I carry a copy of the Constitution in my front pocket of my shirt every single day. I refer to it almost every single day. It's a document that I revere. It's a document that some people says needs to be rewritten. It doesn't need to be rewritten. It needs to be reread. So I'm asking you folks, for the sake of our constitutional republic, we don't live in a democracy. Anybody wants to talk about, there's democracies at stake. We don't live in a democracy. A democracy is everybody has a vote, and 51% decides the way things are going to be on every single issue. That's a pure democracy. We don't have that. We have a constitutional republic. We elect representatives to our Congress and Senate. And I refuse to refer to them as our leaders. They're not leaders. They don't lead us. They're our representatives. Remember that. They work for you and me, not the other way around. So start sending folks to work for you and me that reflect the values held by you and me. That's the only way we're going to make it through this. Gone a little long, I apologize. Like I said, do some research. Look up the central bank digital currency, the digital dollar. Look up the term useful idiot, see where it comes from. Look up DEI, diversity, equity inclusion. ESG, I haven't really mentioned that, but look up ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Look up the Visa letter, the Amalgamated Bank, and the coding of the firearms and ammo. Look up everything that I've talked about here. Maybe while you're at it, pick up a copy of the Constitution and give that a read. I hope this has had some impact on folks. I hope this gets us to do the thing that will lead to us most likely to succeed. But I'll be honest with you, folks. I don't know if we're going to. And all I can say is that, like I said, I'm almost 60 years old. I don't want to live to see the demise of our country. And that doesn't mean I want to die, but what that means is I want our country to survive. I want our constitutional republic to outlive me. And I hope it outlives all of you. And I hope it outlives all of your children and grandchildren. But the only way to ensure that is to start electing the right folks. Start paying attention. Start pushing back on things. Start demanding the truth. Start calling bullshit on the lies. I hope our country's around for another 200 years or more. But based on where we are now, the odds are against it. But you and I can do something, hopefully do something about that. And the first step, the first baby step to that happens November 8th, 2022. Take care, everybody. God bless America.